A man named Ted exists. There is a woman named Sally. A man named Ted exists. Francesca is a girl. A man named Ted exists. There is a boy, Philip. But a man named Ted exists. So which one of these characters do you want to know more about? It's probably Ted, right? But there's only one way to find out what's going to happen to Ted, and that's to keep watching. How much repetition is too much? How much is not enough? It's not really that simple, but by the end of this video, you'll understand why that is. Repetition is an incredibly powerful tool, and how you use it can make the difference between a song that works and one that doesn't. First, you're gonna need something that's worth repeating. If you have an amazing musical idea to begin with, you can obviously get away with repeating it more times than something that sucks. But even a great idea can be ruined by just copy-pasting it into oblivion, in the same way that with the right kind of repetition, you can still tell a great story with a mediocre idea. As my pal Adam Neely says, repetition legitimizes.
Repetition legitimizes. Repetition legitimizes.
But repetition on its own is meaningless, and also just plain boring. We need another ingredient to give it meaning. Repetition legitimizes. It's got kind of a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Hang on a second. Repetition legitimizes, repetition legitimizes. Something like that, let's see. By the way, that glorious sound that you're hearing right now is one of the brand new Bagram digital amp knobs. This is the 5169 model, and they are also sponsoring today's video. Bit more on that later, but for right now, what I'm using it for mainly is the built-in riff recorder function so that I can just take some musical notes. A man named Ted exists. Ted is a banker with 3 children. He met his wife Elizabeth in college, and the two have been inseparable ever since. True partners in crime. A man named Ted exists. Repetition indicates that something is important, and also that what you're listening to is part of the same song, the same story. If you repeat something, it means that you think it's worthwhile, and it telegraphs that to the listener. But all that really does is call attention to it. It marks it as an important character in the story and establishes an expectation. A huge problem that I see in amateur songs is repeating something too many times in a row, identically, and then every single time it comes back throughout the song, it's exactly the same. And that goes hand in hand with the opposite problem, which I'll see in the same songs, which is that every next part of the song is completely different from all the rest of it, with no repetition and no cohesion whatsoever. Every single new part that happens has like a new tempo, a new groove, a new feel, and the other parts that were important, or so we thought, never return. It might seem like an exciting change, but really it's just shoehorned in and random. And random is the opposite of meaning. The way we create meaning with repetition, that second ingredient that I was talking about earlier, is something called development. In the same way that character development arcs throughout a movie drive your interest, musical development of your ideas as you repeat them is what's gonna make your song exciting. A man named Ted exists. His wife, Elizabeth, is not feeling well. They go to the hospital and some tests are run. The doctor has found something. He looks concerned. A man named Ted exists, and he feels heavy. Development in music is when you create variations of a part as they recur throughout a song so that it grows. It makes the repetition of a part interesting without changing it so much that it becomes a completely different character. But it has grown. It moves the plot forward. Having to create variations for a part every single time it comes back throughout a song might feel like kind of a daunting task. But honestly, it doesn't really take much. We're not making a high-budget Hollywood drama here, or even a whole episode of a TV show. Very small changes can actually have a huge impact, and I'm gonna show you a few easy ways that you can do that. Right off the bat, I like to see what it sounds like super tight using all palm mutes. Moving moving it up an octave and then trying it with some different textures. That one might sound good for a verse. One thing that I absolutely love to do and is very, very easy on the guitar is to move the part to a different key. So. Right now I'm demonstrating this idea with guitar riffs, but the same kind of thinking applies across every instrument within an arrangement, and especially to the way that you construct melodies. Using repetition and development in your melodies is gonna go a long, long way towards making your song really memorable. I think of repetition as two separate categories: micro repetition and macro repetition. Micro repetition is how you repeat an idea throughout a part or a section, and then macro repetition is how you repeat those sections throughout the course of a piece of music. Notice that I said how you repeat it and not just how many times, because it's not just some kind of numbers game or something, it's about how you use it to maximize the emotional impact. If we look at the structure of micro repetitions within a part, some popular patterns are like ABAC, like smoke on the water. Now, if we take that formula and apply it to our riff, it might sound something like this. Or AAAB, like Enter Sandman. Now, if we apply that same formula to our riff, it'll sound like this. And then we can see macro repetition in the overall song structure. For example, like a 32 bar jazz standard that's like AABA, or like a typical pop song structure that's intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, 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 chorus. To me, it's like a fun little game of peekaboo. I'm using repetition to play with the user's expectation. You have the little part, you do it again, and then boom, it's gone, something new. Oh, where did it go? Is it gone forever? Ah! And then it's a nice fun surprise when it comes back. It's just another way to create tension and release. The balance is between keeping something from sounding repetitive while maintaining the consistency of a main important idea. If you think that you have something that's worth repeating, you have something worth developing. But if you just repeat the same thing over and over and over again without changing it, I'm tuning out, because what you've done is given me a character that you think is important enough for me to care about, and then nothing's happening to them. You're like, here, check it out, check out this thing, oh, look at it. And then nothing ever happens to it, and I'm like, okay? Anytime in like a reaction video or something where I complain about something being too repetitive, inevitably I get comments accusing me of having a short attention span. But this isn't about short attention spans. It's about you giving me something that is worth me giving you my attention for. Thinking that people having short attention spans is the problem is a hugely arrogant assumption. It assumes that what you're giving me is worth the investment of my time. But if every episode of The Office was about Kevin spilling the chili, you'd stop watching it right away. And if the writers of the show said, oh, you stopped watching it because you have a short attention span, you'd think that they were arrogant and insane. But that's you, the songwriter, telling me, the listener, that I have a short attention span because I don't want to hear you spilling your audio chili for the 50th time in a row. So don't blame TikTok attention spans for your boring songwriting. But the same way that the characters on The Office grow and change and their relationships to each other develop throughout the course of the series.
Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
So that when things happen to them, we care about it, so too should the parts of your song. If the listener enjoyed the part the first time they heard it in the song, the first time it happened, then when it comes back later in the song and it's better, they're gonna love it. Speaking of loving things, I am having a total blast with these 3 new Bagram digital amp knob plugins. Because when it comes to writing songs, the last thing that I wanna be doing is tweaking tones. I just want something that crushes instantly so that I can get my ideas down and hear them as close as possible to the final product. And now there are 3 more models so you can get the same instant awesome in the flavor of your choice with the BDH3, 6606, and 5169, and they all sound completely mix ready with no additional processing needed. They've got this awesome riff recorder function with a metronome built into the standalone version that I demonstrated earlier so that you can capture your inspiration without the hassle of opening a DAW. It's a really useful scratch pad that automatically saves your ideas into a folder, which I personally have in my Dropbox. That way I have access to my riff graveyard wherever I am. They're available for just $39.99 each, or as a bundle of all 3 for $79.99. You can grab those at the link in the description below, and at the risk of sounding repetitive, I think they're pretty awesome. A man named Ted exists. He watches his wife Elizabeth grow weaker every day. The doctor says he's sorry, there's nothing they can do. She is made comfortable, and the children are there. A man named Ted exists, and Ted's heart has become unbearably heavy. An example of what I would call useless repetition is something that I've come across in my songwriting contest submissions quite a bit. And it's the sort of typical local band song structure where they're playing their 2003 Jun Jun metalcore riff copy pasted 8 times out in front of the song. And then every single time it comes back throughout the song, they play it 4 times all the way through exactly the same way every time. That shit is unforgivable. And worst of all, you're severely underestimating your audience. We heard the riff, bro. We get it. You listened to At the Gates once. Unless you have something that is just completely amazing and groundbreaking, bashing your audience over the head with it like that is just plain condescending. In short, I almost never play something more than twice in a row without adding some kind of a variation to it. But on the flip side, you don't want to under-repeat something if it's awesome. How many times have you been listening to a song and there's something amazing that happens and you're like, this is the best part of the song, no question. And then they never bring it back. It never happens again throughout the rest of the song. You're like, what the hell? I guess a lot of times the bridge of a song can be like that, but I digress. 9 times out of 10, it's the other thing. A man named Ted exists, but now, only barely. He is alone with the children now, and every day his heart feels heavier. Elizabeth is gone. Her last words to him were of a fond memory of a picnic date they shared in college. A sunny day on a grassy hill under a shady tree. The years pass, and the color fades from Ted's life a little more each day. He is lost without Elizabeth, and his broken heart is never mended. A man named Ted no longer exists. Do you feel something for Ted right now? Be honest. Why is that? Because I told you a sad story about him? So what? He isn't even real! I didn't tell you almost anything about him, but I just kept repeating his name a lot and repeating things that made it seem like he was important in the story, and so I created meaning in your mind as it related to Ted. And all of that made you assume that he was important in the story because repetition legitimizes. All the things that happened to him, that's development. A man named Ted exists. You establish that and then repeat it. A man named Ted exists and things happen to him. Development. A man named Ted no longer exists. That's a conclusion, which is the ultimate development. The development has given the repetition meaning. So when you're writing songs, ask yourself why you're repeating something a certain way a certain number of times. Is it because you just need some filler? Because you feel like you're supposed to? Because you copy pasted it from earlier in the song? Or is it because it enhances the story arc of the song, making me care about the musical characters? Because it works towards giving me a satisfying conclusion? Does it move the plot forward? Repetition is an extremely powerful tool, and it's very important that you wield that power for good, because if you use it right, it can absolutely take your songs to the next level. You know, like when the band brings back the riff, but slower and lower. And that's why it's one of many topics that I cover in my course, Complete Rock and Metal Songwriting. It's 15 hours of everything that I know about writing songs, and you can find that in the description, along with links to the Bagram digital amp knobs that I've been using throughout this video. Huge thanks to them for being today's sponsor. And if you're having a hard time starting writing a song, you are definitely gonna wanna watch this video right here, because you might be making the same mistake that held me back for years. And I'll see you real soon. Ted.